Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Alright, so here we go. We got another policy discussion. We got a big debate going on Twitter right now. Again, we're talking about the conflict between Hamas and Israel. I'm going to avoid the actual details of the conflict itself. It's hard for me to read between the lines. It's hard for me to tell exactly what's going on there. I don't live there. I'm not an expert on it. I don't research and study it, so there's probably better people to give their opinions on the topic. But where I am somewhat knowledgeable, I mean, to a certain extent, is American foreign policy, or American policy in general, and this is the debate. Immediately after the awful, tragic attack at the southern Israeli border, many people, mostly Republicans, started to talk about the Biden administration's foreign policy handling, I guess we could call it. Specifically, how they just released $6 billion back to the Hamas-supporting Iranian government, or regime, probably a better way to say it. And Democrats all over the platform have been fact-checking and fact-checking and fact-checking. Actually, that $6 billion released by Joe Biden can only be used to buy puppies, medical supplies, and sandwiches. You Republicans out there, you guys, you're promoting fake news. Well, let's very quickly destroy that talking point. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so we're getting reports that Iran was involved in this attack. We also know that a couple weeks ago, Joe Biden released $6 billion to be handed out to the Iranian regime. People pointed to this possible connection or misappropriation or misuse of funds, or the funds themselves somehow being involved, or just kind of the idiotic nature of it all, that we're kind of funding the exact groups that plan to destroy us. Anyways, I don't want to go into circles, but then this guy, Matthew Miller, who's the official spokesperson for the State Department, he came out with the big fact check. Let's be clear. The deal to bring US citizens home from Iran has nothing to do with the horrific attack on Israel. Not a penny has been spent, and when it is, it can only go for humanitarian needs like food and medicine. Anything to the contrary is false. A lot of leftists on Twitter retweeting this guy, a lot of people basically promoting the same talking point, but this talking point is utter garbage. First off, we have this clip from not too long ago. I think this is from early September.
But what is your expectation of its use? We're told that it's for humanitarian purposes, food and medicine. Do you believe you have the right to use that money in any way that you see fit?
This money belongs to the Islamic Republic of Iran, and naturally, we will decide, the Islamic Republic of Iran will decide to spend it wherever we need it.
So if I hear you clearly, that it will be used for more than humanitarian purposes in your view?
Humanitarian means whatever the Iranian people needs. So this money will be budgeted for those needs. And the needs of the Iranian people will be decided and determined by the Iranian government.
Well, so that clip exists, but of course, let's not just talk about this idea from the Iranian side. Let's take a look at what Anthony Blinken said, like literally less than 24 hours ago.
What do you say about the argument that money is fungible? So Iran may have known this money is coming and used other funds to help fund this attack that happened.
Iran has unfortunately always used and focused its funds on supporting terrorism, on supporting groups like Hamas, and it's done that when there have been sanctions, it's done that when there haven't been sanctions, and it's always prioritized that. And again, I come back to the proposition that these funds have always been, under the law, available to Iran to use for humanitarian purposes.
So Blinken essentially admits that the Iranian regime finances terrorism, and that, hey, we released $6 billion to them anyway, in the hopes that they would do the right thing. What an absolute frickin' joke. The arguments related to this topic make absolutely no sense. And the strongest argument that all these leftoids are clinging onto is this notion that the money wasn't even released. Well, the $6 billion wasn't released to the Iranian regime, therefore it could have never been used. Well, what does that mean? That means literally nothing. If the Iranians know that they are to receive $6 billion, well, then they theoretically have an extra $6 billion to use. It's coming right around the corner. They can allocate their own funds to fund all the terrorism that they want, and then have the $6 billion come in and fill that accounting gap. Well, they didn't spend the actual money or the $6 billion that was wired to them. They spent other monies and then replenished that money. Therefore, fact check false. Another Republican conspiracy theory. What an absolute clown show of epic proportions. Look, maybe this is a controversial point. Maybe I'm a kooky, crazy person. But for me, the reality seems that these conflicts attacking American allies in many ways seem to be funded by American dollars. You know, it all comes full circle. It's all this revolving door over and over and over again. I mean, we have a report from June of 2023 where the title states, Israel worries that United States weapons for Ukraine are ending up in Iran's hand. High-ranking Israel Defense Forces IDF commander has told Newsweek that Israel is concerned over the risks of weapons provided by the United States and other Western nations to Ukraine ending up in the hands of Israel's foes in the Middle East, including Iran. Later on in the article, we have this little paragraph. More recently, the Taliban secured a substantial arsenal of U.S. weapons and equipment, including Black Hawk helicopters, after U.S. forces withdrew from Afghanistan in August of 2021. The Israeli commander with whom Newsweek spoke with said that some United States small arms seized in Afghanistan have already been observed in the hands of Palestinian groups operating in the Gaza Strip. In other words, reportedly, allegedly, the armed forces that attacked Israel were armed with weapons and equipment, military equipment, that's American-made. It's the constant revolving circle of global destabilization as a result of American interventionist foreign policy. We're spending billions of dollars mostly unaccounted for, fighting a proxy war in a foreign country, and the billions of dollars that we're spending on military equipment is ending up in the hands of insurgents groups and terrorist groups that want to destroy us and attack our allies. Whether it's weapons from Ukraine, Hamas fighters in the Gaza Strip are armed with American weapons that Joe Biden left behind in Afghanistan, and weapons that Joe Biden continues to send to Ukraine. Not to mention they send $6 billion to the Iranian government that directly sponsors Hamas and other terrorist cells and organizations. We're literally doing it to ourselves in a certain way. That's what it feels like. Because of idiotic decisions made by the ruling elite political class that's either too stupid to see 2 steps ahead, or is essentially doing it on purpose, purposely destabilizing the world for some sort of interest that we may or may not understand. You know, listening to these Washington empty suits speak in a retroactive kind of manner, in my opinion, really blows up the kind of idiocy and the incompetence.
The sort of counter argument is, when you're talking about $6 billion, is that even though there are, sort of rules as to how that money can be used, you spend money on maybe food aid for your people, then that gives you extra money to spend elsewhere.
So here's a couple of things I want to make sure everybody understands. You're right, this money can only be used for humanitarian purposes. We are still focused on putting pressure on them, holding Iran accountable for all their activities, whether it's supporting Russia's war in Ukraine, supporting terrorist networks, attacking maritime ships in the Gulf and in the Strait of Hormuz. We're going to continue to make sure we have the means, the tools, both military and economic, to hold them accountable. So if in fact they decide to increase their support for terrorist activities or increase their maritime attacks in the Gulf, we're going to be ready to counter that. We're going to be ready to hold them accountable. We're going to be ready to try to deter that activity.
You know, we just sent $6 billion to the Iranian regime, knowing that the Iranian regime literally uses this money on 2 things, either developing nuclear weapons to threaten the Western world or funding terrorist organizations to attack Israel and commit horrible atrocities across the world. We know that they do this, but hey, we sent them $6 billion anyways. And I guess if Iran decides to increase their support for terrorist activity, we're just gonna have to respond and get ready in the future to deter that activity. See what I mean by coming full circle? It's like this circle where we do it to ourselves. We fund terrorist nations who then commit horrible acts attacking us, and then we have to spend more money than funding ourselves and our allies, defending ourselves against countries that we fund who keep attacking us. Look, anyways, maybe I'm reading into this too deeply or incorrectly, but one thing I know for sure is that all the leftists standing on their high horse, debunking and fact-checking everybody on Twitter, you guys are full of it. You are wrong. You are unequivocally 100% wrong. And your idiot president absolutely should be in political trouble after releasing that $6 billion back to the Iranian regime, after all the unaccounted blank check spending and sending of arms to Ukraine. By the way, at the exact same time that that Joe Biden decided he was going to release a notorious arms dealer back to Russia for frickin' Brittany Griner. Oh, I wonder how all the American-made weapons in Ukraine are landing in the Middle East. Oh, it's a frickin' mystery now, isn't it? And of course, after leaving billions of dollars of weapons back in Afghanistan into the hands of the Taliban, knowing full well the threat, considering Joe Biden warned us of the threat back in 2008.
And it makes a big difference to tell the American people the truth about what our options are in ending this war. If tomorrow the order goes out from I'm President of the United States, I issue an order, end the war today, begin to withdraw all American troops. It will take a year to get the American troops out. Do you hear me now? That's the truth. It will take a year to get them physically out. Now, if you leave all the equipment behind, you might be able to do it in 7 months. And you leave those billions of dollars of weapons behind, I promise they're going to be used against your grandchild and mine someday.
You lefties don't get to defend sleepy, creepy piss pants Joe on this one, or the establishment warmongering goons getting exactly what they hoped for. Another leftist fact check obliterated. In other words, another day on the internet. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.